Hey everybody, Ronaldo Walkerman of Master School Dances and Apron Entertainment for schools only. And today I'm going to talk to you about the newest, my favorite, Mac Daddy sub of them all, perfect for weddings, corporate events, and most importantly, school dances. Something that sips power but puts out a major output. Most importantly, it lasts forever and has some unique features that make this sub the best sub for, again, school dances, corporate events, and even weddings. So let's take a look at the ETX18SP. Now the great thing about this particular sub is that everything from the box to the driver to the amplifier, the DSP, every little thing was manufactured by EV to their own specs. Now the great advantage of that means that just like, for example, Apple computers, I love Apple computers, right? The hardware, the software, everything was designed by their own engineers, which means everything was made to work together beautifully. And not just, okay, well, we match a great top with a great sub. We're talking, we match the driver, the amp. There's no outsourcing of any kind of parts of any kind. Everything has been exactly done by their engineers. And it really shows when you see some of the features, especially on how they work together, including the cardioid mode. So the first thing that we're gonna look at is the DSP. And the advantage of the way they made this DSP is that it not only gives you a whole bunch of features, and there's so many that I'm not gonna be able to cover everything in the review, but I'm gonna cover some of my favorites. But it has another awesome feature, which I'll show you in just a moment. First, let's go ahead and go into basics. You have your input and output. And what's really neat about this is that it's actually gonna show you, let's go ahead and hit play for just a second. It's gonna show you your decibel input. So right then and there, it shows me that it was a -8, then it shot up to 0, and then 4. So that way you know whether you're running, hot out of your mixer or out of your speaker, whatever, your chain of command is for that. And that's something that was pretty handy in there. And of course, you got individual outputs as well, and inputs and outputs. Over here, very easy to read. I can turn it to whatever sensitivity I want, but I'm going to hit the enter button, and I can have functions. So I can have this for music, for a live application. Of course, it's going to be for music. Live would be more for sound or anything like that. Now, location. It gives you normal and cardioid, and we're going to go over that in a bit. So let's go back to normal. Low pass, pretty simple. Now, of course, you have your 80 hertz, you have 100, 120, 150, or you can match it up with some of the other ETX series. And your room EQ is pretty simple. You can select your frequency and whether you want to boost that particular frequency or break it down. This kind of DSP and EQ control is usually available in separate rack mount units, but it's built into the ETX series. There's also a delay, so you can choose the delay if you want to, and if you need to reverse the polarity. When we go to options, pretty simple options. We can have our front light on or off. Your measurements, if you want meters or feet, your LCD backlight, your contrast dimmer display. If you want to lock the menu to keep your employees from messing around with it, that's great. And we can reset the factory settings, or we can go into the information in case you ever you call them and you're diagnosing, they're like, what firmware are you running? Or, you can give that information there. It'll even tell you when your sub was born. Isn't that awesome? All right, so I want to go into the cardioid setup, tell you a little bit of what that's about and why I have it configured that way and why you're going to fall in love with that. Now, when you're running a single sub, or 2 subs, or however many you decide, as you know, bass is omnidirectional. Now, what that means is the bass is going to go out this way, it's going to go out that way, it's going to go out that way, but more annoyingly, it's going to go way out in the back. Now, if you have, for example, musicians and they're playing the guitar, it's going to pick up feedback. If you have speakers, you're going to, like actual somebody talking, that'll pick up feedback. If you're on turntables like I am, those needles are going to bounce like nobody's business, especially how loud these guys are. So how can you fix that? Cardioid, basically, from what we know as, cardiology, it almost creates like a heart-shaped range of where the bass is going to go. And this was tuned specifically to block out certain parts of, or certain areas of sound. As simple as I can explain that. So for example, in this particular venue, I'm about 20 feet from the wall. And if you have the subs coupled against the rear wall, this isn't the setting that you want to use. But when you're against that back wall and you have a stage or something behind you, you want to go into cardioid mode. Not only does it prevent the sound from getting back there, but when the sound hits the back wall and then bounces back, it's already out of phase and you're going to get some cancellation that you're not going to want anyways. So by actually doing the cardioid mode, even if the subs are in the middle of the room, you're going to get nice low bottom end, real powerful sound because you're blocking those waves, the reverb off the back wall, and cancel out. Not all reverb is good. This isn't car audio, folks. So it's very simple. I have my sub on top here, and I have the bottom one. The bottom one is inverted. And this guy is set on cardioid. Now I want to make sure all my other settings are exactly the same. Now what happens is, behind me, yeah, I can hear the bass, but it's not like shaking the heck out of me because it's canceling it out effectively in the area that I want. But you walk in front of it and it's just hitting you right in the chest. As a matter of fact, it's going to hurt if you stand right in front of it. And that's exactly what I want out of a sub. I want nice, clean, low bottom end that's loud, especially for school dances. Now here's where it gets really exciting. This DSP has 3 individual levels of protection. First, you've got your limit light. Now, we all know what the limit light does, but basically, in this particular set of speakers, the limit light says, hey, you know what? I'm working, I'm protecting your speaker, chillax, you're good. Now, you've got the peak light. Now, the first thing that I notice is that the peak light hit a little bit earlier than I would normally expect. I'm expecting a little bit now and then, but this one seemed to hit a little bit premature. So I called the folks at EV and they were able to help me out right away, which is another great thing about working with EV is you're gonna get an answer right away. It's not just gonna be some guy reading out of a book. And what they explained to me is that that's all part of it. What they did is they put a premature threshold on it because it's better safe than sorry. The peak light's not saying, hey, you're destroying me. It's saying, okay, now my next level of protection is kicking in and we're good, man. Don't worry about it, it's good. Then you have the third level of protection and that's the temp light. Now the temp light is not saying, hey, you're running this hot. As you know, the voice coils in these speakers can get really, really, really hot. It's not actively monitoring the voice coil level. What it's doing is it's already been calculated. How loud can these, how hot can these things get? And what is the point where they get too hot? And if it sees those conditions again, your temp light's flashing on saying, hey buddy, you need to back it a little bit. You're running it where it's gonna get hot if you keep doing it. It's great. I would love to have literally somebody to tap me in the shoulder and say, okay, you're running it a little bit too much. But we're DJs and we're not always paying attention to these lights because we're moving around everywhere. Or if you're a rental house company, you can't always trust that the person you're renting these out are going to take good care of your speakers or you're renting out to them. Or maybe you're a production house and you just get the one guy who goes, yo, what's up? And then blows everything out. So what happens when you push that temp light way too much? What happens when you're peaking nonstop? And this guy is not going to overheat on you. This guy isn't just going to catch on fire or it's going to blow a voice coil or anything like that. What it's going to do is, once the amp says, all right, you know what, buddy, enough, we're backing down for you, it's going to turn down the volume for you right away, and you're going to see your temp light pretty much stay solid on, and it's basically saying, all right, you're in timeout. It's not going to cut off your sound. This is going to bring it down to a reasonable level, and when it's cooled down and ready to go, it's like, all right, push me again. So I don't want to say, hey, you can't blow these speakers because, challenge accepted. You can do anything damage-wise to anything out there. But it's going to take a huge amount of work to be able to damage these things or even get these things to shut down. I pushed 2 of them at a huge school dance and just kept ramming them and ramming them and ramming them. And they didn't overheat. They didn't even get slightly warm. The Class D technology on this is absolutely fantastic. Now, let's jump forward towards the superficial part of the speaker. Now we've talked about the internals, let's talk about the externals, and that's the actual case. No ugly carpeted case, very roadworthy case. I'm waiting for my covers to come in. Until then, I've used these for a couple events, actually 3 events. This is my 3rd event, and these things have gone banged around everything else, and they look brand spanking new. They can definitely take a good beating. The front of the speaker, very attractive cabinet design. The pole mount, handles, everything was designed by them. The wooden cabinet, because again, this is all wood, it's birch. It's not your traditional, okay, we're just going to put this thing together, glue it, nail it, and pray to God that it doesn't fall apart. They use the tongue and groove design, which is just additional level of security, but this thing isn't going to fall apart on you, unlike some other cabinets that may be out there. One of the really exciting things about these speakers, as far as mobile productions go, is they're not tiny little wheels. These are big boy casters. Nice thick ones in there too, and you don't just get 2 and tilt it back and try to push it in. It's got 4 of them, so it easy rolls in and out whether you're using a ramp, but if you have to lift it in because you're using a cargo van like I do, these things are lightweight. As a matter of fact, I could lift these things up myself. And then the most important part is, how do they sound? Well, as much as I wish that you could be downloaded over to where I am and you could hear them right on the spot, because I promise you'll be like, oh my God, I gotta have these, because that's how I was. You got to take my word for it. And when I say these things sound amazing, they absolutely sound amazing. So what are my qualifications for amazing? Well, I need 3 things out of a sub. A, I need it to sound good. I need it to be loud. And I need to do them with as little of them as possible, because unfortunately, when you're doing school dances, you're not always able to bring stacks and stacks of subs. As much as I would like to, there's not always enough power to be able to do that. So how do these things fare? Well, in terms of how loud they get. They get obnoxiously loud. Loud enough that I could feel it. Even on Cardioid mode, I could still feel it a little bit behind the stage. When they hit those low notes, I'm telling you, it felt like something even bigger than an 18-inch sub. This is by far the most efficient 18-inch sub I've ever heard. Just beautiful, the sound that comes out of it. As far as the quality, it's great because, you know, usually you have the trade-off between SQ, sound quality, and SPL. In this case, you have what you call SQL, and it's a combination of sound quality and bass pressure, and these things hit low and they sound great. They complemented whatever speakers I pair them up with perfectly. No matter what tops I used, they sounded like they belonged with it. As far as the volume rating, whenever you talk to the speaker manufacturer, they're going to give you a rating, and you ask them, was this measured or calculated? In this case, it's measured. 136 decibels at 1 meter, measured. If you don't know what that means, it just basically means that if you stand in front of these, it's going to feel like the hand of God is slapping you right in the chest. And that's a wonderful, wonderful feeling, especially for school dances. But most importantly, can you bring these out to a wedding? Maybe you have a small 100-person wedding and you want something discreet. These have a very low profile. I mean, you can see they're fairly tall, but that's one sub stacked on top of the other. And you guys know I'm not the tallest person in the world. So it's got a very nice low profile. You do have a hole right here. You know, you got the cup for you can put a pole to put another speaker on top. So again, you got a nice, clean, elegant system for a wedding. You can stack these up, and they're actually recessed on the corners, so you can stack them up as high as you need to within safety levels, of course, so you can use them for a big production. Or you can move them sideways if you want to, invert the center one, put it in Cardioid mode, and now you have a killer school dance system that not only pounds, but if they tell you, hey, you got to keep the bass down, we got a wedding going on next door, not a problem. If the wedding's behind you, you just flip that one sub around, put it in Cardioid mode, and you're going to see literally physics being broken right then and there. And we all want to see physics being broken. These subs absolutely do it. So again, to summarize, we have our fur drive, we have the brick wall crossover, all the parts that were made in the USA, engineered by EV, nobody else, and a system that works together, including peak and temp limiting that's predictive to make sure that you can keep using your speaker and you can keep pushing it, and that it's not just gonna blow and die on you. All this together at 136 decibels at 1 meter measured, and it sips very little power thanks to an effective Class D amp design. And that's the EV ETX18SP. My name's Ronaldo Hoffman of Master School Dances. And as somebody that does a lot of school dances and pushes their speakers and tries to break physics as often as possible, I want to go on the record and say that these subs aren't just ones that sound amazing and that have great bottom end, but the features, the benefits, the price point, and the security that as a multi-op, I don't have to worry about my DJs messing with things that they shouldn't have and accidentally destroying something or deleting features. I can say that this is the ultimate sub for mobile events all the way up to high-end productions. Again, my name's Ronaldo Hoffman with Master School Dances. Thank you so much, good night, and God bless.